Becky had it. Oh, it's green. It works.
Okay. Do I have a motion to return to open session?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Woods, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond? Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Mr. Trebaka?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to certify closed session to the best of every member's
Okay.
knowledge? Do I have a motion to matters lawfully exempt from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification applies? And only
Ms.
such
Bond,
public business matters as were
Franklin,
identified in the
Ms.
motion
Graham,
convening
yes,
the closed
Mr. Hudson,
meeting were heard,
Ms.
discussed, or
Cass,
considered.
Yes.
So
Ms.
moved.
Parton?
Yes.
Mr. Trebaka?
Ms. Woods, may I
Yes.
have?
7 in favor.
Motion
Ms.
carries.
Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Do I have a motion to certify
Mr.
closed
Hudson.
session to the best of every member's
Ms.
knowledge?
Cass.
Do I have a motion
Ms.
to matters
Parton.
lawfully
Yes.
exempt
Mr.
from open
Trebaka?
meeting
And
requirements
7 in favor.
by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which
All right,
this
thank you everyone for being here
certification
tonight. As we begin
And
tonight's
only
meeting, I
Bond,
ask those in the
Ms.
audience
Franklin,
identified in
Ms.
the
Graham,
silence your
yes.
cell phones.
Mr. Hudson,
Were
cell
heard,
phone
discussed, or
notifications
considered.
Yes.
for
Ms. Parton?
text or
Yes.
calls
Mr.
can be
Trebaka?
distracting to others in the audience
7 in
and to the
favor.
board as we conduct
Motion
our
carries.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
And do I have a motion
Also,
to
as we
certify
start,
closed session to the best of
meeting
every
here
member's
tonight,
knowledge?
do you
Do I have a motion to matters lawfully before we get into it? One, by Virginia law, we do have a public statement.
All right, thank you everyone for being here tonight. As we begin tonight's meeting, I ask those in the
Ms.
audience
Franklin?
identified in the
Ms.
silence your
Graham?
cell
Yes.
phones.
Mr.
It's regrettable
Hudson?
that former
Ms.
Superintendent
Cass?
Meyer has made
Ms.
such
Parton?
extensive and public comments about a Montgomery County Public Schools student. The board believes responding publicly to those comments to be both unlawful and inappropriate, not to mention deeply unfair to students. Without engaging in a substantive discussion of a personnel matter involving Dr. Meyer, it is sufficient to note that in terminating Dr. Meyer's employment as superintendent, the board acted lawfully, unanimously, and within its discretion. Nothing the board has learned since that time has given it cause to regret or reconsider that action. There have been several misrepresentations made in public by Dr. Meyer. While we do not intend to engage in extended and public back and forth, we will strive to be transparent, and we will have more to say in the future. We look forward to moving our division ahead together with our new superintendent, Dr. Bernie Bragan, as we strive to do what is best for students, as we always do and as we always have. Thank you. And then we have one other item of business before we get started. It's been a tradition, I think, a relatively new tradition for us to to give a recognition to our to a former chair after they are done with their service. So I have this lovely plaque with.
Can I still use it?
I think you can still use it. So.
Oh, well, thank you. I was not
Being-
expecting that.
Being on the board is often, I mean, it's a rewarding job, but sometimes it can be thankless, and I think being chair is maybe especially so for some of you
You'll find out.
who have done it. I guess I'll let you guys know next year. But we really do appreciate the extra work that our chairs do each year. And Sue, you're a wonderful chair, guiding us through a really tough and tumultuous year, and you did a lot of work this past year, and we all recognize that, and we thank you for it. So
Well, thank you.
very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's been fun.
Good.
It's been real, but it hasn't been real fun.
All right. So let's see. We have one student representative tonight. It's Sam Woolsey from Blacksburg High School, and Sam, I think you're going to read our. Are you going to read our mission?
Yeah.
Or statements? Okay.
The MCPS mission is as follows. MCPS is an innovative educational community. We value diversity and we are committed to equity and inclusion. MCPS empowers learners to realize success in an ever-changing global society through collaboration with communities, families, staff, and students. MCPS provides a safe, engaging learning environment and intentional exposure to positive social, emotional, and academic experiences. Our beliefs are, all students can learn in order to pursue their dreams. Schools are safe places of joy, wonder, and creativity. Every person deserves to be loved, valued, and respected. Kindness is an essential skill of a responsible, productive community member. The diversity of our community is one of our greatest strengths. All people deserve equitable access to opportunities and resources. Every child deserves an advocate. Honoring the voices of students and other stakeholders strengthens the school community. Open communication and feedback are vital to our growth. Learning and teaching are collective efforts that begin at birth and involve the entire community. Relationship building and high expectations are foundational to student success.
All right. Thanks, Sam. All right, our next agenda item is public address. We welcome the opportunity to hear from students, parents, employees, and community members about education matters in the community. As a reminder, the board sets aside 30 minutes to start our public address. We have the option to extend in 30-minute increments, which Ms. Woods will remind us of. If there are additional speakers after 90 minutes, the board will continue with their business meeting and hold one additional 30-minute session at the end of the business meeting. The clock continues through applause and disruptions. The more disruptions there are, the fewer speakers who get to address the board. I will call each speaker up by name in the order that they signed up. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. The board does not respond to speakers during public address. The screens will show when the speaker has 30 seconds remaining and when the time is up. Please state your name and the area of the county you live in. The first speakers are Crow Sindelar and Amy Hill.
Second. All right. Good evening, members of the board, and Happy New Year. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday. My name's Crow Sindelar, and I live in Blacksburg. I am here.
Crow, can you please speak closer to the mic?
Yes,
Is it on?
sorry.
Is the,
Yeah,
is
it's
it green? Oh, there he goes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Can
you.
I move it
Sorry.
a bit? Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm here as a non-binary person, a friend to other trans people, and a student in your schools. I ask again that the board choose not to adopt Governor Youngkin's model policy on the treatment of transgender students from Montgomery County. It is discriminatory, dehumanizing, and anti-science. In earlier meetings, I've shown you research, statistics, testimony, and precedent, and I've told my own story. Tonight, I'd like to share with you a quote I first read in history class from Voltaire. "This little globe, which is but a point, rolls through space, as do many other globes. We are lost in the immensity of the universe. Man, only 5 feet high, is assuredly only a small thing in creation. One of these imperceptible beings says to another one of his neighbors, 'Listen to me, because God of all these worlds has enlightened me. There are 900 million little ants like us on the earth, but my anthole is the only one dear to God, and all the others will be eternally damned.'" Voltaire was talking about religious tolerance, but his point still stands, especially as there are now over 8 billion of us ants here on Earth. Why are we so reproachful towards, so afraid of difference? We ban and turn away and abuse the people we do not understand. We see them as less than, especially when they are young, like I am. But why would you assume that you know my friends and me better than we know ourselves? Why are we so obsessed with controlling what some ants we don't know in another hole wear and call themselves? We are all human beings living our lives for the first time, trying to figure out who we are. It's scary on our own, even without bringing the complications of school, society, and gender into it. Life is terrifying and difficult. We all know this to be true. We've all been uncertain before, afraid of judgment and rejections. So why do we still choose to shun and belittle each other? Can we not let the other antholes be? Be kind, be respectful. If you don't understand something you want to learn, ask or do research. And if you don't like it, leave that particular person or ant alone. We've all got bigger things to worry about. The ice caps are melting, the oceans are on fire. We don't need to worry about what a 14-year-old wants to be called. Let us learn tolerance and no longer base ourselves around alienating and outlawing others. We must learn to coexist with the ants that use they/them pronouns, and those who are assigned one gender but feel another, and those who choose new names. What does it matter? As Voltaire said, we are but small things, our world a point spinning through the infinite and ever-expanding universe. We must survive together with respect and equity while valuing the strength of our diversity. We are all different, and that is nothing to be afraid of. Choose not to adopt the model policy for Montgomery County. Choose kindness. Thank you.
Thank you, Crow. And next is Amy Hill, and after that, Sarah Ovenk. Sorry if I'm
during that.
Hi. I'm Amy Hill, former MCPS teacher, now mom to 4 kids, 2 of whom are in the system. I believe in incorporating new technologies into our education system and preparing our kids for the world they're going to grow up in. But I'm here tonight because as a parent looking in, I have questions about how well we are teaching kids to use the technology, to form relationships with the incorporation of it that will continue to be beneficial to them throughout their careers and personal lives. We don't allow, much less require, teens to drive themselves to and from school until they've had adequate preparation for driving and passed a test to ensure they're ready. Similarly, I think the Chromebook devices that we're able to put into every student's hands should come with sufficient training before they're put to use and a scaffolding of skills before they're fully engaged for educational purposes. We, in my children's school, have a wonderful librarian and media specialist, and in my kids' 30 minutes, 1 time a week with her, I've heard of wonderful things they're learning about the use of their Chromebooks. But the other 5 days a week, minus that half hour, they're getting a lot of time reinforcing untrained habits. So I'd like to see our curriculum prepare kids to regulate their own attention and focus on a device that by design offers the stimulation of dopamine reactions in its click to instant gratification relationship. I'd like the amount of time they spend on Chromebooks to reflect their stage of development. We adults are learning real time how extended lengths of time on our devices can alter our own habits and personal decisions. So even as we regulate and learn about our own relationships to the integration of technology into our lives, it's our responsibility to do that for children who have not developed the skills they need to do that well. Outside of the effects on impulse control and self-regulation, research shows that the increase of sedentary screen time has a direct impact on children's neurophysiology in addition to their physical development. Every time I pull up the news, there's a new study about the negative impact so much time on devices is having on the older kids who are in our system now. Does our school board issue recommendations for how much time our children are in front of screens at school every day? I couldn't find it on the MCPS website. If we don't have policies in place, we should. We should be forming strategies to lessen the anxieties our teens are currently living with, and we should be proactive in preventing younger children from growing up with the same struggles. I appreciate this opportunity to bring my question here. I look forward to hearing from you about the structures that are in place, and if I can be of any help, I'm happy to do so, and I'm sure there are many parents who are as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Next, we have Sarah Ovink? Ovink. And then after that, Chris Thomas.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Sarah Ovink. I'm a Blacksburg resident, a former 7th grade teacher, an educational researcher, and a professor at Virginia Tech, and I'm a mom to 2 kids in MCPS. My youngest is a 6th grader at BMS, and my oldest is Crow, who just spoke a little bit ago, who's a 10th grader at VHS. So I'm here tonight to speak on 2 topics, the anti-trans model policies and StudySync. Much has already been said about the proposed model policies and how harmful they will be for trans, non-binary, and queer students. These harmful policies are part of a national trend seeking to target and demonize queer students. These harmful policies, I traveled to Richmond yesterday with the organization Equality Virginia to speak with legislators about the raft of anti-LGBTQ and anti-trans bills that have been proposed in the State House and Senate. These proposed bills and policies are hateful, harmful, and have no place in our state. These policies and bills will not promote meaningful educational advancement among our young people. They will not improve our aging school buildings, replace the 10,000 teachers missing from our classrooms, get students excited about learning, or bring badly needed funding for counseling, nutrition, or other key roles that our schools provide for our communities. These policies and bills will make our young people afraid to trust their teachers and their schools, and they will add to the mounting burdens that our Virginia teachers already face. Under the guise of parents' rights, these policies and bills actually take away the rights of parents like me. I love my kid, and I simply want what every parent does, for my kid to feel safe and supported at school, for them to learn and grow with their peers. There is nothing scary about choosing a different name and pronouns. Politicians who support these policies and bills are not serious about improving education for our children. They're using this as a wedge issue because they think it will help them win elections. So please don't be fooled. School board members, please do not adopt these anti-trans model policies. Now, a few words about StudySync. Many teachers have already come before you to speak up against this restrictive, limiting, and frankly, boring educational product. Using StudySync basically turns in-person classes into an online class. And in fact, the StudySync environment somehow manages to be worse than the remote learning time that my child had to spend. Students sit silently in class, reading short passages instead of novels, and answering questions about them, alone together on their Chromebooks, instead of interacting with teachers and peers. And in fact, I've heard that some former teachers among the missing 10,000 have listed StudySync as the last straw that pushed them out the door. My oldest is in 10th grade honors English, and this year so far, they have been able to read exactly one novel. This is honors 10th grade English. This is not what I was expecting for their educational experience here at BHS. This program is taking away my children's natural love of reading and literature and turning their English classes into boring drill and kill programs. So please get rid of StudySync and allow our teachers to do what they do best, which is teach. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ovink. Next, we have Chris Thomas, and after that, Anna Vijayan.
All right. Members of the board, Chris Thomas, Christiansburg, Virginia. Earlier this month, I received a copy of Mark Meyer's second separation agreement from MCPS under the Freedom of Information Act. I have some questions. First, the document in question refers to itself and the document it replaces as agreements. Dr. Meyer keeps using that same word in his statements to the press, so I assume it's not contested. Agreement implies that both sides have the opportunity to walk away and leave things as they were. So, in March of last year, Dr. Meyer had a contract guaranteeing him 18 months of pay should the school board choose to replace him. He has since told the Roanoke Times he did not receive severance, a statement which is supported by the text of the second agreement. So my question to you is this: why did Dr. Meyer agree to give up more than $300,000 in severance pay if, as he says, he was forced out of his position without cause, consultation, or due process? While we're on that subject, I'd like to ask some other questions about the second separation agreement. According to Section 3, Dr. Meyer ended up with $55,000 of taxpayer money which did not belong to him, and which he is now expected to pay back to the school system. He told the Roanoke Times this was all the result of an innocent misunderstanding to do with the timing of his retirement and the length of his paid administrative leave. But if that's the case, why did there need to be a second agreement? Why did anyone need to draft a legal document at all? Why did Dr. Meyer need not only the services of an attorney to square it up, but had to agree that he'd had legal representation when he signed it? If everyone was just in agreement, why not cut a check and be done with it? Section 8 says that nothing in this agreement constitutes or shall be construed as an admission of guilt. Guilt of what? Who's not guilty, and what specifically are they not guilty of here? This is not language that one would expect when two parties mutually agree to settle up accounts. I've had to leave my fair share of jobs in the course of my career. I've never once had a severance agreement clarify that I wasn't confessing to a felony. Members of the board, Dr. Meyer's second separation agreement raises more questions than it answers. It portrays our former superintendent as dishonest at best, and a crook who stole more than $55,000 from our school system at worst. I applaud Dr. Meyer for his statements to the press, but the board's silence here casts a long shadow. The employees of MCPS, students, parents, taxpayers, we all deserve better than that. While I appreciate the board's statement today, it must also release the first agreement, make an on-the-record statement clarifying why Dr. Meyer was terminated, and explain how an extra $55,000 taxpayer dollars ended up in his bank account. Let's put this matter to rest, so the voters can make an informed decision at the ballot box. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Next, we have Anna Vijayan.
Hi, my name is Anna Vijayan, and I live in District A. I'm here today to thank you, the board members, for your service, and to offer some words of support and encouragement. When I heard Dr. Meyer suggest that 3 of you are on the board for the wrong reasons and suggest that 3 of you did not advocate for students, I knew I wanted to say something. all of you are on the board for the right reasons. All of you care about students. At board meetings, I consistently hear each and every one of you talk about students as the basis for your decision-making. Yes, you sometimes disagree about what's best for students, but all of you advocate for students. So it hurt me to see Dr. Meyer disparaging your service with that comment. I also want to say something related to Dr. Meyer's comment on being treated or not being treated with dignity and respect. I have not had personal interactions with all of you, but one member with whom I have had a personal interaction is Penny Franklin. She participated in a phone conversation with me when she was vice chair of the school board and I was chair of one of the school board advisory committees. And I can report to you all that she treated me with the ultimate in dignity and respect. Prior to our phone call, she had been provided with some misinformation that put me in a negative light, but she still treated me with respect. She listened to what I had to say, and we both came out of the conversation with more information and understanding. So yes, I have complete trust in Penny Franklin to treat parents with dignity and respect. Finally, I want to encourage you, board members, to have the strength to continue your roles, to continue advocating for students and parents. Even if Dr. Meyer resorts to personal attacks and criticizes your motives when you disagree with him on policies that are best, on which policies are best for students. According to the National School Boards Association, board members are more than policymakers and administrators. They are advocates for students and their parents and entrusted to engineer a better future. Please remain true to yourselves and to your constituents. Please continue questioning the status quo, continue advocating for students and parents, and continue moving us forward to a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vajan. And I see no more people signed up for public address, so public address is closed. If no one wishes to move an item out of consent, we will consider our consent items approved. All right. Moving on to payment of the bills. Do I have a motion to approve the payment of the bills as presented?
So moved.
Ms. Woods, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to acknowledge receipt of the financial summary report?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Ms. Woods, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. All right, we're now in the business meeting portion of our meeting tonight, and we'll start off with a report from the superintendent. Dr. Bragan, it's all yours.
Alrighty. Thank you, Board Chair. I don't have a lot to say at this portion of the meeting because we're going to talk extensively when we go over the budget update, myself and Dr. Whitaker. But I did want to bring something up to the board and to the public as a whole. We received a correspondence from the mayor of Christiansburg, Michael Barber, about a week ago, informing us that effective on July 1, the Christiansburg town would no longer pay for the SROs that we have, school resource officers, in our schools that are located in Christiansburg, in the town of Christiansburg. There was a discussion last night at the Board of Supervisors that Dr. Whitaker and I attended, and it was really refreshing to hear their board chair, Sherry Blevins, speak so passionately about how committed she is, as well as the Board of Supervisors, is in making sure that each of our schools has an SRO. And I just wanted to say publicly that I feel the same way. I can't speak for the board members, but I can speak for the administrators that I've spoken to, as well as from my experience as a school leader, that the SRO position in our schools is critically important. And we will do whatever we can to work cooperatively with our law enforcement agencies at the county level in our two towns to continue to have our SRO presence in each of our buildings. And whatever I can do, I look forward to having those conversations with the Board of Supervisors and the local law enforcement. We've had some really productive conversations already. I think this is more about funding, which I don't think anyone's questioning the efficacy of having these law enforcement people in the buildings. So I look forward to working together and making sure that that continues, and that I personally will do everything in my power to ensure we have an SRO in every building. Mr. Board Chair, that's all I have for this part.
Thank you, Dr. Bragan. Next couple items is grant proposals. Do I have a motion to approve the grant titled School Nutrition Program Equipment Grant?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this?
Well, I'll just say I'm very glad to see this because we have such a need to replace this equipment.
All right, Ms. Woods, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond? Yes. Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve the grant titled VDOE School-Based Health Workforce Grant?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion on this one? Okay, Ms. Woods, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. All right, next item on the agenda, something we've been hearing about a little bit. Athletic trainers staffing update. So Mark Husband will provide this update.
Good evening. Board Chair, school board members, Dr. Bragan, thank you all for the opportunity to talk about athletic trainers this evening. I think we have some background information and some options for the board to discuss. So for the past few years, I'd like to focus on 21-22 and 22-23. MCPS has created a request for proposal for athletic trainer services. Each of the past 2 years, a consortium of providers, including the Virginia College of Osteopathic Medicine, Carilion, and Lewis Gale, have applied to provide athletic training services to MCPS high schools. VCOM was the lead on this consortium. The agreement has cost MCPS $60,000 per year for each of the last 2 years. $40,000 of that was earmarked for athletic trainer services, $20,000 for stipends to teach 4 sections of a dual enrollment athletic training course. This course met one of the requirements for an associate's degree. There have been some challenges with the plan the past 2 years. Turnover among athletic trainers has always been significant under this agreement. And that's not just for MCPS, but across the New River Valley that I'll go into in just a minute. During 21-22, MCPS did not have any athletic trainers under this agreement. For the full school year, none of our high schools were covered. Currently, in 22-23, MCPS has had 2 athletic trainers, one at Christiansburg High School that started with us September 1st, and one at Eastern Montgomery High School that started in December. Current practices at the 2 schools that have not been covered is that the Virginia VCOM, attempted to schedule athletic trainers to attend all home varsity football games, and they are currently working to schedule athletic trainers for home basketball games. They've been working with their employees who may work as athletic trainers for Virginia Tech or for Radford University or other areas where they have relationships to try to get some of those games covered. That has not always been easy because those people already have full-time jobs, and athletic training jobs are inherently long hours and oddly scheduled hours. Some information on the events that have been covered as of January 18th, 2023. These numbers are consistent with what we talked about in terms of having trainers. So Christiansburg High School has been lucky that pretty much every single one of their events has been covered by an athletic trainer. They've had a full-time trainer in their building since September 1st. Eastmont High School, you can kind of see there by sport that volleyball, they didn't have a lot of luck with that. Football was hit and miss, but now that we're into the winter sports season, the girls basketball and boys basketball have coverage since Eastmont had an athletic trainer join in December. Auburn High School and Blacksburg High School have not had sufficient coverage. You can see there the percentage at the bottom. This school year, 61.28% of all athletic events have not been covered. So some background information, and I apologize for the the way that shows up, there's a little bit of change in how that looks. I'll kind of walk you through it since it's hard to read now. Athletic trainer models across the New River Valley. I was able to talk to or email with every school division we have listed here. So Floyd County's model, they partner with Carilion. They currently are covered with an ATC, but they've also had a high turnover rate. Giles County also partners directly with Carilion. They have 2 high schools, and one of those high schools has been without an athletic trainer for the entire school year. The other high school has had an athletic trainer for the entire school year. Pulaski County has an interesting model, especially from where we're looking at our options moving forward. Pulaski County hires an athletic trainer directly that works for the school system, but they also partner with Carilion to try to provide a second athletic trainer. So the athletic training position that Pulaski hires directly has been fairly stable. They've had 2 people in the position for the past approximately 17 years. The Carilion position is currently over and has seen the same turnover that Floyd and Giles have frequently seen. Radford City also directly employs an athletic trainer, has seen less turnover. Salem City Schools directly employs 3 people. They directly employ a head athletic trainer. They also have an assistant athletic trainer that's an employee within their school system, then also takes on additional responsibilities. And then during spring sports, because there are so many events and the Salem sports complexes are oftentimes far away from one another, they actually hire a 3rd person during the spring to be a part-time athletic trainer on a stipend in the spring semester. So with that knowledge, I've put together a number of options. I think the option that lends itself most clearly is if the opportunity is available to directly employ athletic trainers in Montgomery County Public Schools. That is the model that we have seen have the most success across the New River Valley. Certainly there are other options. We could continue with the current arrangement with VCOM's consortium and renegotiate the RFP to provide additional compensation. We have been trying to hire part-time athletic trainers. We had some success last year. We have not had as much success this year with part-time people. We could certainly look at that model and try to make changes to that as well. Really, for the board's discussion, it comes down to financially where we feel like we are and our priorities moving forward with athletic trainers.
Do you happen to have any information on schools that, or counties that are like ours that have more high schools? All of these counties just have 1 high school, so it's a little easier to do what they're doing. When we've got 4 high schools and 4 middle schools, it makes things much more difficult. Did you happen to get any information from counties that have more high schools?
I wasn't able to connect with Roanoke County, being the most consistent with us.
They may have some ideas.
Yeah, I did not. I was not able to get a hold of their person in a timely fashion, unfortunately.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
So in the districts that hire athletic trainers, are those athletic trainers at every athletic event?
Yes, ma'am.
Every one?
So, yes. So I have some personal knowledge from Giles County, having worked there previously as a principal. Every single event that athletic trainer was at for Giles County. And the conversations I had, it was consistent with each of these school divisions that they basically set up a priority list. So they start with, football. Of course, they're going to be at football. Then they're going to be at volleyball in the fall. And then they look at where are the home and away games and where are your conflicts. So if you happen to have, especially in the spring, maybe you have some home baseball games and you've got home softball, but you've got away soccer, then they stay at home and you work with the team for the away games to make sure your soccer is covered to the best that they can. But yes, they're 3 nights a week, 4 nights a week, depending on the schedule. Basically, we would set up a schedule for these people that would be roughly 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. and that would be their schedule. They would be there for student athletes after school to, whether it's practice or games, wrapping ankles, preparing water, doing all the things that athletic trainers do, even implementing treatment programs from doctors, and they would have great relationships with all the coaches throughout the school system, and they would be at every single event, and then we'd make decisions when there are conflicts between events.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, so they prioritize, but away events
so
that may not have, the trainer may not be there.
If there's a conflict, yeah. In my experience that when I was coaching, so I coached in Augusta County, there would oftentimes be an athletic trainer with me if there were no home events and there were no home practices when you get into the postseason. We would have to make a decision as a division, meet with the athletic directors, meet with the principals as to if we've got a home football practice and we've got away volleyball games, what's the division's priority? But with a full-time employee that we employ directly, we would be able to make those decisions.
And how did they balance middle school and high school?
So for most part, they were high school. Everyone on here was just addressing high school.
Okay.
I do think there's an opportunity, having talked with the athletic directors, that if you have someone that's with a schedule that's 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. on a daily basis, and you have Wednesday middle school football game, then you've got an opportunity, if there's not a volleyball game or a varsity football game at the high school level, you can have coverage for that sort of game. But we would sit down and, again, create that hierarchy of these are our most important sports, and the athletic trainers would just kind of consult that list and go down until they hit an event. And maybe on the odd night, they might not hit any events, and just a good night for them.
I have two questions. I may be the only one here who doesn't know this answer, but what did we do before 2021?
I don't have a great handle on that. I'm sorry. I wasn't overseeing it. Maybe Danny Knott wants to come up and give me some history. He was overseeing athletics at the time.
Sweet.
Prior to 2021, we were still partnering with VCOM to provide athletic trainers for us. We did have a fairly high turnover rate, but we always had a trainer at that time. Since then, there has been according to Dr. Rogers, who works for VCOM and who has been our contact for many years, just like teacher shortage, just like the teacher shortage we're seeing, there's also a national athletic trainer shortage that's out there. 2 years ago, I think they didn't graduate any athletic trainers through VCOM. Part of that was because of numbers of students. Part of that was because they also changed the program requirements, going from a 4-year program to a 5-year program. So there's that one odd year where they didn't graduate anybody. The next year, they only graduated 7, if my numbers are correct, if I'm remembering correctly.
Okay, thank you. And then second question is maybe just a little more of a curiosity. In terms of our current agreements, are we able to break that agreement at any point? Are we kind of stuck in a term that we have to live out?
There is language in the RFP that outlines the end of that contract, but I've also spoken with our contact at VCOM twice since your last school board meeting, and they've reiterated each time that their goal is to have the students covered. And if we feel like we have a better option to have students covered, that they're interested in working with us to make sure that happens.
Okay, thank you so much.
Seems like to me, I remember when my boys played football, that there was a physician that usually was at the home football games, and it wasn't so much the athletic trainer, but it was a physician that was, just willing to come and give their time for the home games, and they might not have done other sports, but they picked that one. Is that an opportunity that you could explore to see? It would take something off of somebody else's list of events they had to be at.
The physicians are in addition to the athletic trainers. So we had physicians at each of our football games this fall, and I believe they were able to do so last fall as well. Oftentimes they have fellows come from VCOM students. So they're really there as backup in case of something more serious occurring. But they have been at all football games. They're not able to staff all of the other sports. That's where the athletic trainer kind of comes in. They're always there. But we have consistently had the fellows and the actual physicians at the football games.
So I'm going to jump in here since I'm the one that kind of got this whole thing started a little bit. I'm still going to beat my fist on this one. Thank you for all the information. It was very knowledgeable. You told me a lot of things I wasn't aware of. Thank you, Danny, for all the work you've done as well. From what I can tell, if we don't hire the independent trainers, we're not making our students the top priority. If we're depending on a company to do that, then we're making the company the priority and not our kids, because we're letting that sit on them and we're not taking the responsibility for it. I understand the contract with VCOM. I understand that there's been an issue with the trainers, but that doesn't still take away the fact of the safety issue that lies that our kids need, and our kids come first, and that's why I'm here. So from what I hear from the directly employing the athletic trainers, I'm just going to speak for myself as a board member. I can't imagine that that's not something that we would just go ahead and do, because I'll be honest, I want to see athletic trainers at every sporting event this spring, and that's starting in a month and a half. I have had several entities and businesses reach out to me personally that are interested. I know we have more than one school, but with the overwhelming response I have gotten, and I do believe there's people that would volunteer even if we asked. I just think that that's a step that we need to seriously think about as a board. And again, I know that falls within a budget, and I know that that costs money. But to me, that's money worth spending. It's a life, and I'm always going to fight for the kids and their safety, and I think that's a serious consideration that the board needs to think about. And if VCOM, I appreciate everything VCOM has done for us and working with us and trying to work with us, but if we're not getting what we need from them, we need to head in another direction.
I'm going to agree with Dana. So could you flip back to the last one, Mark? Oh, wait, before that. Before that. I'm looking for the money, how much it cost. Is that the first one?
I didn't.
There it is.
Okay,
There it is, sorry. So the agreement that we have right now costs $60,000 a year.
It costs us $60,000.
So right there, that's one person, right? One athletic trainer.
Yeah, the full RFP.
Almost. So that would be the cost. If we were to hire directly that would be the,
So
Almost.
Almost.
It's a little bit higher than $60,000 to employ one person.
Plus fringe.
Benefits and everything else.
right, plus fringe.
to fill in the full RFP amount with all four organizations, VCOM, Carillion, Lewis Gale, and MCPS, is $283,000.
We're paying, that's what we're paying right now.
That's what all four organizations are pooling together. We're paying from the $60,000, and then the other three are paying the difference, the $223,000. So I think that as a total budget number, that might be a good number to look at for all four schools.
I mean, it sounds like Jamie mentioned it and made a point which was true, is that all those other organizations are small organizations. I mean, we would probably have to look at having one person per area, community. So you're talking at least 4 athletic trainers. And yeah, it's a substantial amount of money, but I think it would be the lawsuits we'd have if children get hurt and there's no one available, and just the thought of that happening and a student being hurt and nobody there to help them is, to me. I had a daughter who actually got injured during a game, and I was thankful we had an athletic trainer there for her, because otherwise, nobody would have been taking care of her right away. And but I think that it's, I agree that it's something we should really consider, and especially VCOM can't accommodate. I guess the question though is how easily could we find somebody to do this if we can't? The recruiting pool is probably pretty limited.
There is a cyclical nature to athletic trainers, just like there is with our teachers. They frequently sign on for a full year. So that would be something we'd have to look into. But certainly, we feel like this puts us on a stronger footing in terms of our recruiting and is a step in the right direction.
So for me, I look at this and I see a little bit of nuance maybe, where I don't look at this necessarily as all or nothing one way or the other. I mean, certainly when I look at this slide, I say, man, we're getting a pretty good deal, right? I mean, at this point, I know that one of them came halfway through the year, but we're fully covering 2 schools at this point, or nearly fully covering 2 schools for $60,000 instead of $140,000 or $160,000. So the other piece of it for me, and we're all big on education here, and I like to think of our area, our county and Radford together as kind of an educational area. I mean, we have 2 major universities and our school system, just for starters. And, part of education is, you don't have enough trainers, you have to train the trainers, right? And isn't that really what VCOM does? I mean, you mentioned them being a company, but I mean, I don't think they're a for-profit company, right? I mean, I think their mission is to train. And so to the extent that we can utilize that to our advantage is good. And I think to the extent that we can allow them to fulfill their mission, it's great. And I do agree that we need, somehow we need to bridge the gap. And the fact that you've already talked to, I forget the name of the gentleman from VCOM that,
Her name is Mary Mitchell.
Yeah, so that you've talked to them already and that they're willing to work with us says to me that maybe it doesn't have to be all or nothing, that we could, open up 1 or 2 trainer positions maybe initially and see how things go. I don't know. I'm certainly willing, just to put in my 2 cents, I'm willing to put, to move some money into this. I don't know that we need to go full, 280,000, and hire 4 all at once, especially when we are getting, some of these services for much less.
I do think we'd have to look at a new RFP, if we were going to go that direction. Just because the terms of the agreement, I think at that point would have changed. So, yeah, we have had a number of people, and maybe you all have heard the same, wondering if we could have like students, maybe master's degree students from VCOM or other different healthcare providers. And really the state board certification is really what's holding us back on that. In addition to the master's degree, there is a state board, just like a lot of other professions, that they have to sit for and take that, and they really can't operate without someone looking over their shoulder until after they've passed that state board exam. So that is another kind of hurdle to overcome.
And one more question. One of the slides, I think, had kind of listed the 3 options. Mm-hmm. One of the options, if you could go to that slide, I think, one of the options was, where was it? Oh, yeah, provide additional compensation. Do we expect that would do anything? I mean, if the problem is a shortage, is anything that we would renegotiate on that? Do you expect that it would be different? Do we know even? Can we know?
I think the biggest hurdle, so in our current agreement, VCOM has exclusively negotiated those contracts. MCPS has not been a part of that. So there might be something in there. I don't know. I have not brought that up to them as to how that would impact their staffing. Of course, VCOM is hiring people for the universities as well as, so they've got their pay structures with that. It's certainly, I thought it was worth a try enough to put it in here as an option. But that was, they've done that. I would say that additional compensation at any point in time, whether it be just within salary or within benefits, we've heard from people who have left MCPS that the reasons they've taken jobs in other local school divisions has frequently been the benefits, especially the access to the Virginia retirement system.
Board, is there anyone else have questions or discussion? We're not taking action on this tonight, I'm assuming. Bernie, I don't know if you want to weigh in or if this is something you're going to take back and look at and bring forward at a future time in the near future, I would think.
I mean, certainly, Board Chair, we can explore all the options. We will reference this when we present on the budget, that we did include some monies for athletic trainers, and we'll talk about why.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, next item on the agenda, update to elementary construction and facility needs. We have Dr. Whitaker and Chris Lowe. Oh, all right, Dr. Whitaker will be back in a second.
Yep.
She's left you high and dry there, Mr. Lowe. Sure.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Bragan. Appreciate the opportunity to be here to give you an update on our facilities. Sorry, there we go. Now you can hear me? So we're just going to give a brief overview of the funding sources and uses, some updates on our individual projects, some additional recommendations, and what our next steps are for these projects. If you remember, on August 16th this past year, the board has provided information regarding funding for capital projects with ESSER 3 funds in order to ensure projects aligned with spending requirements and dates. We worked to identify funding sources which could be utilized for CHS and projects that could be completed more quickly with the ESSER 3 funding. Started without you.
That's all right. I'm so sorry. I had to blow my nose.
So as you see here on this chart, and Dr. Whitaker could jump in at any time, but as you see, we have money designated for CHS in the far right column. And when you get down to the balance of renovations at CES, BES, and CPS, those projects have about $867,000 still left in their account. And those projects are still designated those funds at this time.
Yeah, if I could, we want to show here a little bit from that original meeting where you can see the second column to the right, the original designation. So when we brought this information to you in the fall, we were, remember, trying to reallocate the funds, so we had put certain amount of funds from CARES towards Christiansburg High School, and know that we won't be able to spend those funds that had originally been planned for Christiansburg High School in the spending deadlines that are indicated in that column. So the goal was to identify other funds that might be available and then redesignate those. So you see in that far right-hand column what Mr. Lowe was speaking about there is where those funds are and then our new designations. So the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them are for CHS. That is your total $100 million. So we have designated those funds to that project. And what we needed to do was look at what were the other funds that we had available to us, and so we had the balance of the renovations, the 2.5 cents from our tax years, and then the CARES funds. So those CARES, as are 3 funds, are the funds, again, that had originally been planned for Christiansburg High School, but we would not be able to finish that project in the time that had been presented to you prior, before I stepped in to take over this project. And so we needed to reallocate those funds. And so what we're going to do today is provide you an overview of where we are on each of those projects, and then let you know kind of what our future planning is for them. As a reminder of our presentation from August 16th, we broke those needs into 2 different categories that are in yellow. So in addition to the current projects that we had at Bellevue Elementary School, Christiansburg Elementary School, Christiansburg Primary, and CHS, we had some priority needs. And so pretty much as soon as I stepped in, the individuals from the operations team came forward immediately and said, these are some problems that have been needing to be addressed. And so those are our priority needs lists. They were broken into safety, roofing, HVAC, exterior, grounds, plumbing, and electrical. And then our current renovations list. So that was for BES, CES, and CPS, items that we identified later that should maybe be addressed in a renovation. And so as we go through, we're going to address those within those categories listed above, as well as those current renovation list needs. And so these were our safety priorities. One thing that's really exciting, you see a red number, which means that number is going to change. And so as you all are aware, there was a water pressure control issue for the fire sprinkler system at Eastern Montgomery Elementary School. I'd like to applaud the work of Chris and his team, Philip Hash, John Sutton, and also I'd really like to let the board know how closely we collaborated with the PSA, with Todd King, with Mr. Meadows, to work on how we were going to figure out to address this issue. We also worked very closely with our state and local fire authorities on this. We've been having ongoing meetings, and the really great news is that number is going to come down significantly. We were able to find the concern, and so that concern is being addressed. It has been corrected. We are officially off of our fire watch as of last week. I sent you an email. And so we'll continue to move forward and work with that authority, with the Public Service Authority, regarding the expenses that were occurred. We'll come back to you later about that. But it was an absolute collaboration between us and them. And I'd really like to celebrate how working together moved us forward and got to this. This problem has been a problem that has been existing. And so bringing it to the forefront, talking about it, addressing it, and collaborating with those other entities has gotten us to an excellent place of resolution. And so the funds that we had originally designated there will be much, much less than what we had planned. And we'll be able to recoup a huge piece of that. I don't want to give you final numbers because I don't like to give them until they're final. We're awaiting one outstanding invoice, but I would see, at least $90,000 less in that column. In speaking with the Fire Service Authority, it could have been upwards to $300,000 or $400,000 we would have had to spend if we had not continued to problem solve and had just put a Band-Aid on it by getting a new water pump system. We could have done that, but it wouldn't have solved the problem, and we had to get to the root of the issue. So we will keep you abreast of that, but that was an excellent celebration of collaboration. Chris, is there anything else you want to share about that?
No, just I'm thankful that it's over.
We spoke with our local fire authority, and, we told them, look, we wake up in the middle of the night about this, so we're just really excited that it was able to be resolved. I'd also like to thank the staff who served as our fire watch, because, any minute the building was occupied, we had to have people doing that, and so that was really great that we had community members willing to serve in that way. For the CMS Falling Branch, Montgomery Central Operations Center, as well as Shawsville Middle School and Auburn Elementary School. All of those fire systems, remember, it's important to know, they were not failing, okay? So we're replacing components that are no longer able for us to purchase, but it did not mean in those schools that we had systems that did not work. It meant we need to address the problem before they don't work. And so those projects we have had approved through our ESSER 3 funding. I want to make the board aware that we did two things. One, we filled out a blanket application. We did not have to do specific project approvals for each project, but we did. We wanted to go above and beyond and ensure that not only the big project dollar amounts, that we had safety issues, but each of these projects specifically was approved, so that in the event something changed with how we could spend funding later, we had these specific projects approved. And we're really thankful we did, because we got guidance in the fall that said, money you haven't allocated, we want you to do something with that, and so we're really glad that we got those approvals. The POs have been issued from the operating funds, and we're beginning to move forward with those. They were emergency needs, they were safety priorities, so we are addressing them as quickly as we can. Again, you set aside $1 million for us to address school safety needs. Mr. Garrettson is working on a survey that's going to go out into the community very soon. He has also been speaking, we have our regular safety meetings with law enforcement, so we'll be getting feedback from our community, as well as working in conjunction with law enforcement to bring you recommendations of how we would like you to use that $1 million. And so as that needs analysis is completed, we will bring you the information for your decision making. Roofing priorities, I just wanted to share the graphic to remind you, Bellevue Elementary School and Christiansburg Elementary School are current renovation projects. So although they are current renovation projects, they are on the emergency needs list, because we did not address the roofs in these buildings. And so it was concerning to me that we had failing roofs and that we fixed the inside and we did not fix the outside. And so Bellevue Elementary School, these were what those roofs look like prior to beginning these projects. You can see through our priority needs at Bellevue Elementary School, Christiansburg, and Montgomery Central. Again, the projects have been specifically approved for use of our ESSER funds. They're in the design phase right now. A PO has been issued, and we are working on that. As we get the designs, we will then put those projects out for bid to see, obviously, what the best price is that we can get for that, and we will keep you in the communication on that. Oh, I'm sorry, one more, go back up. I'm sorry, Chris. Shawsville Middle School, that was installing the fascia, I always say it wrong. Fascia. I need to do it phonetically. And so the projects were approved, but right now we are waiting for the recommendations. We've had the industrial hygienist evaluate it, and so we're looking at those recommendations and determining how to move forward. So again, if you see that TBD, that means I might have to come back to you, because until we know what they said, we don't know how much it costs. Our HVAC priorities, again, these were outstanding issues. So you see two of our current renovations are on this list, Christiansburg Elementary School, Bellevue Elementary School. In both buildings, the HVAC needs had not been addressed in the planned renovations, so we needed to do that. So these, again, have been approved for ESSER funding, and they are in the design phase. For the AES cooling tower, our scope of work has increased. Can you explain that a little bit to him, Chris?
There's a pan at the bottom of the chiller, and we are initially, from what I understand from Mr. Sutton, was we were initially going to seal that pan, but because of the condition it was in, we had to actually replace it, so the cost of that project actually went up due to that change of scope.
So you can see that increase is the 66 in red. The original estimate was 20,000. So what we're going to do is submit a budget amendment to increase the ESSER funding for that. Our building exterior priorities were, again, at our renovated school, Bellevue Elementary School, the kitchen loading dock. The concern with the loading dock is it's just not big enough. It's not much bigger than these tables. And so when the staff from school nutrition try to load and unload the supplies as they're coming in, it's just not really safe, and there's not enough room to do it. And so we need to get them a concrete pad where they can safely get those materials and in a timely fashion. It takes longer to do the work when they can't just do it the way that they should. So we've put in the PO for that, and that it's coming from the existing Bellevue Elementary School funds that we have available. Eastern Montgomery Elementary School, these were to repair the leaking wall flashings. Project has been approved through ESSER funding again, and the design is complete. We're preparing the bid package to go out on that project. Our grounds priorities, Shawsville Middle School, we had the concrete steps and sidewalks at the annex building. Again, I know we keep repeating it, but we're just trying to be consistent with the information. The projects have been approved, and it's in the design phase. We had 3 projects that were declined. So Auburn Elementary School's parking lot and access road paving and seal coat was declined. Eastern Montgomery High School athletic track replacement was declined, and sprinklers for all baseball and softball fields were declined. We will bring those back up to you in a little while. Montgomery Central is replacing our water lines. That funding was approved through ESSER 3, and so that is in the design phase at this time. Electrical priority was the lighting controller for the auditorium at Eastern Montgomery High School. Again, that was declined for ESSER 3 funding. We also cannot use the state capital for it. We tried that as well, but because it's in a theater, they would not allow us to do that. Although I tried real hard because it's instruction, that's where theater takes place, we were not able to get the funding to be used for that project. So those were the priorities, the emergencies. Now we'll update you on the current renovations list. Just as a reminder, we initially, and I want to say initially, because when this first started, August, remember, I was just really getting in, starting to uncover and dig. So we initially identified 11 items that were outstanding from the existing renovation projects that we felt needed to be addressed. We moved forward the top 6. So that was through the additional parking area for Christiansburg Elementary School. The ones we did not address originally are the ones 7, 8, 9, and 10, which we will need to address. I would also say there are probably other needs. Now that I have been working with the schools and Chris has been working with them and working with the building principals, there are other items in our current renovations that we'd like the schools to be able to bring forward to us and say these are other things we'd like to look at and address. So as a reminder, at Bellevue Elementary School, the playground, kind of the legs were cut off of the playground. Some of it was in the ground, some of it was out of the ground, and the plan had been we were going to reattach them together and put it back up. But the playground equipment was so old, trying to patch that back together just did not make sense. There was no plan for replacing that, and so they are moving forward. It is going to come from existing Bellevue Elementary School, $100,000 for that, and also it's not listed there, but the fencing around that playground is very, very close to the road, and so we, the safety of keeping kids who may be runners from running up onto the main road. Then painting the exterior doors and windows, again, some's old paint, some's new paint, and the colors don't match. So we need to paint them to match, and that would come from existing projects. The interior doors, some are old, some are new, and they don't match. So that it would be an additional $50,000. So for that school at this time, it's $177,500. Christiansburg Elementary School, you may remember me telling you, it's hard to say it, but we did not plan for parking, so we did not have enough parking for our staff members and parents to attend the building, and so, there were not extra spots. There just was not anywhere where were people going to park. And so we have begun the design process and what that looks like to add additional spaces in, and that would come from the balance of what is left for projects. Painting of the exterior doors and windows, again, this was not included in the original renovation. We feel that for a renovation to be complete, the paint needs to be done. So we added that in, and again, the same problem with the interior doors. The painting of the multi-purpose room at Bellevue, Christiansburg Primary School. So this is what you would have called the cafegimatorium. Now it's just the cafetorium. However, it was not planned to be painted. This is one of the most high-traffic places in our building. Parents come, have community meetings. This is where we have assemblies, we have productions. It's one of the top places our community would touch, and there was no plan for that. So we need to address that and get that area up to speed for our community. Montgomery Central and the Operations Center. For a reminder for those who may not be aware, our Operations Center and Montgomery Central are on the same piece of property. And so when we talk about them, sometimes we talk about them together. So as I shared with you in the fall, when the Operations Center plan began, there had not been a plan for the storage sheds, the buildings, the maintenance. Where were we going to store the tires? Where were we going to put all of the stuff that we were taking out of the properties that we sold? So we sold the Cambria location, but we were still renting it back, and we were still storing buses and equipment there. We had to get that stuff out December 1st. After December 1st, the charge was going to be $300 a day for rent. We luckily made it out. We got out on that day. We cleaned the trash. We did everything that was needed. I'd really like to applaud that operations team for going above and beyond and coming out 3 and 4 times to pick up the trash that we were asked to remove from the property. And so we did that, and what we're going to do at this time is we have moved them to a rental location that we have rented. What we would like to do is we want to continue to assess needs and make a recommendation to you in the future on what we would like to do there. So we're going to put that on hold at this time while we assess our needs. In addition, the plan had been to add 4 bus charging stations. In speaking with Mr. Walters, what we'd like to do is we have 4 buses, and we actually have 4 charging stations. We at this time don't need 4 more. Because we only have 4 buses, and those are out in our communities. We would like to assess the use of electric buses. We want to collect some data over time. Can we fix them? We've already had to send, 1 bus back. What is the long-term maintenance? What does that look like? Are we getting the mileage that we thought we would get? How much does the cold impact us? What are those things looking like before we put in additional charging facilities or purchase more? We'd really like to wait, see what we feel about electric buses before we proceed. Then the last was the Montgomery Central outdoor basketball court. This one is specifically important to me because we have students in that building and they have nowhere to go. Their play space was removed when we took the gym and turned it into the bus shop, which it looks great, but those students need an outlet for their energy. They need somewhere to get outside and be creative. So that is going to be paved this spring. That was delayed, the paving, due to weather and asphalt. But we are going to be getting that done this spring, and we'll let you know when that project is complete. So our recommendations for you moving forward would be, 1, leave any remaining fund balance for Bellevue, Christiansburg Primary, and Christiansburg Elementary. Though the original plans are just about done, we still have some punch things that we're working on. We really feel like we need to let our building principals tell us other needs that they see within their building and work with the operation teams to identify those and bring them forward to you. And then prioritize based upon, each school had very different budgets. So let you all look at the budgets that each school was given and let you all determine how you would like to do that, but not to take the balance and put it back into into a general fund. The second would be to continue the property that we're renting for bus parking and material storage while we further analyze the best approach to addressing those operational needs that we addressed regarding storage, the tires, and all of those things at the operations center. We'd like to utilize one-time funding as it becomes available to address the parking at Auburn Elementary School, the athletic track and auditorium lighting at Eastern Montgomery High School, and the sprinklers for the high school softball, baseball fields. So we would keep those on a recurring list so that we know as we get one-time funds available, we would address those needs. And then the last is to complete the facilities plan, to identify needs and to develop the long-term plan aligned with the MCPS strategic plan. This is just a reminder of the first slide that showed the funding, to see if anybody had questions about how we redesignated those funds. Our next steps would be upon approval of moving forward with the projects and the funding presented to you, we will bring forward to you a reappropriation. What we are going to do is put the projects into the categories listed here so that we can track category by category. Within those categories, we'll actually give each project a project number, so we're tracking the project expenditures by school, by category, what is occurring, so we know exactly where we are on our spend downs at all time, and Ms. Miana would bring that forward to you. Then we would take that to the reappropriation request to the school board, to the Board of Supervisors, if you were to approve it, so that they can then put the funds into the categories that we'd like to spend them from. That was a lot of information. I bet there aren't any questions.
Two, the track at Eastern Montgomery High School, that needs to be taken care of.
Yes, Ms. Franklin, I would agree with you. I got some pictures the other day. That is at the top of my list.
Thank you,
It
Ms.
is bad.
Franklin.
It is in bad shape. I don't like to promise before we can promise, but Ms. Miano and I and Dr. Bragan are working very closely on the budget. And as soon as we feel comfortable that, yeah, we can earmark this money, we'd let you know, but we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but that is at the top of the list. I don't believe we have a track anywhere else in the division that looks like that.
Penny, do you mind if I jump in for just a second on that? So my concern with the track not being done, and I understand completely everything you're saying about the money. What are the kids this spring there just not going to be able to run track because the track's not usable?
You know, I honestly would say they're probably planning to use it. I don't know if there's been any discussion of doing anything different with that, but I can get some information and bring that back to you as soon as possible.
I mean, because that's a safety issue.
Yeah, huge
I mean,
safety issue.
even for students using that during class
PE.
time. PE, yeah.
Well, and the money was, I know it was rejected from ESSER, and I don't want to use the term move money around lightly, but I mean, are there things, I mean, as you guys are going through, is there something that maybe we weren't planning to use ESSER for, that we could use ESSER for, that then we could take that money and use it for the track, you know?
We will evaluate that. We tried really hard to pick what we could that would get approved because of what ESSER will approve. But let me look again, because we certainly could have missed something, or there certainly could be something different now. So what we'll do is evaluate that and look at the funds too and see is there anything else that we can do with that.
So there's another safety issue for the folks at Christiansburg Elementary School. And this has been for several years, and that's that back gate. And folks just don't feel secure with that gate the way it is. So we need to look at what we can do to improve that.
Yes, I think when you see on our recommendations of working with the principals, I think that's an extremely important component of facilities planning. It should come first, right? Let's work with the people who spend all their time in the buildings and ask them what they see and what they want and what they need. And so that's why we're requesting that you don't reallocate those funds back into the regular, because there are needs that our principals have seen. That's one specifically that's been brought forward, and things that perhaps principals would have liked to have done that did not get done. And I think we need to hear their voice in that. And also the recommendation of the facilities plan, a component of that plan will be the collaboration between instruction and operations in planning this from the beginning of a project to the very end. It should be a joint planning operation.
Thank you.
So do you need two motions? Can you flip back to the actions?
What we will do on the actions is, if you guys are okay with it, since it's a work session today, Ms. Miano will get those letters drafted, the reappropriation, and she'll bring it to you for the next meeting. If there was something that you wanted different, then we would change that now before we have those letters sent to you. But the plan is to bring those forward to you at the next meeting. And then the Board of Supervisors meeting follows very closely after. We would go and present those to them. And actually provide them the same update I believe they would like to have as well.
You know, before we're done here, I just like to say thank you. Thank you to Annie and Chris and all your teams and everything. I know this is just still, design, right? And we don't have the stuff, everything fixed yet, but I remember sitting in this room when y'all first presented this and just the punch in the gut that this felt like, right? So seeing the transparency and the planning and all the actions being taken, it's awesome. So thank you.
Thank you. I'd really applaud the work of Chris's team, our project managers. it's an enormous amount of work that's gotten done to get to the design process and where we are on each of these projects, even just half of them. So they have been working nonstop, and I just, without those project leaders, you know, Jay, Lee, John, Philip, and Chris, I would not have information to share with you. You know, I sound like I know what I'm talking about because they know what they're talking about, and we work together.
It's amazing what can happen when folks are allowed to do their jobs, isn't it?
It is.
Thank you all.
Yeah, so a couple items from me on the, it'll be interesting to hear on what you guys, I agree with you on the electric buses, getting a little more data on that. The piece of data that's going to be tough to get on that I think might be one of the biggest pieces is how long those buses will last. And I don't know how much, you know, electric buses track with electric cars, but, you know, one of the things that we're finding out about electric cars is their lifespan, you know, whereas a normal car may, you know, people might be selling them at 200,000 miles, you know, an electric car may last twice as long, and, you know, the batteries seem to be doing better. It'll be interesting to see what, I appreciate what Mr. Husband did with, you know, checking with other localities on the trainer situation. There's certainly, we're not the first to use these buses, so it'd be interesting to factor that in as well when you do that. And as far as some of the things that were missed in some of your presentations, I mean, things that are $10,000 or $20,000 in the grand scheme of a, you know, $30 million renovation is one thing, but I tell you, it really grates me when I see things that are adding up to $500,000, $1 million, multiple millions of dollars, because some of those things you know, certain board members asked specifically about some of those things, and I don't know if we were misinformed. I don't know if there was, you know, incompetence or something on the part of the previous administration, but I do think it's important to point that out. And when you say we didn't do it, it wasn't you that didn't do it. You inherited some of this stuff yourself. So I do appreciate your efforts on this. All right, board. If there isn't anything else on that topic, we'll move on to the 23-24 budget update. No action today.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, I think Dr. Whitaker is staying, and Dr. Bragan also will provide the superintendent statement of needs as part of our budget planning process. Go ahead.
And Ms. Miana, oh, that was really loud. Ms. Miana is going to come up as well.
Thank you, Board Chair. Dr. Whitaker, myself, and our team, we worked hard to put this together, and we're going to go over what our statement of needs are for the next fiscal year, 23-24. Dr. Whitaker, do you have control of these slides, or?
You know what? I will. You can't imagine I'd like to drive, right?
So just a quick overview of the process there. We're going to talk about where we began, which was basically the funding for this year, 22-23. Talk about what our budget goals would be for next year in 23-24. Review what the process was like in developing the budget and the team when we worked together to put that process together. To be, one, transparent, and two, to try to address the needs that were shared with us at the building level and department levels. The amendments of the fiscal year 23-24 for the governor's budget, there's some things in there that are contingent upon us doing things to get as much funding as we can from the state. Brief summary of our self-insurance fund. I think there's some information there that's valuable that the board as well as the public should know about. And then we'll summarize that at the end with the superintendent's statement of needs, which is basically our overall ask that we're presenting to you with the board, and upon iterations and revisions, whatever need to be, will be presented to the Board of Supervisors when ready. And then the budget calendar, just review the dates for that process. You know, when we were talking about this, Dr. Whitaker, myself, and the team, and, you know, where do we start? For me, it's really simple. You start everywhere with the budget. Everybody talks about the money, the dollars, and how much it's going up, going down, how much this costs. Sometimes we lose sight of what we're doing here and what all this money is for. And our mission statement reminds us of what we're here for, right? Anything that we ask you for, anything that we ask the Board of Supervisors for, anything we ask for our taxpayers, or so that our students will graduate our program and our schools to be capable, high caliber citizens of not only the Commonwealth, but also global citizens, and be able to be successful in the world in which they live, which is often very different than the world where we grew up, right? So I think it's important that we never lose sight of everything we talk about should come back to our mission and our strategic plan, and that's what we're trying to fund and do everything we can to make sure our students graduate us with the most opportunities in order to be successful in the world in which they live. Again, a visual representation of just some of our children and what we do. For me, it's always about the kids. And the question I always used to ask, and I'll ask you this one because this is my first time here in Virginia, you know, how much is our child's education worth? Right? It's hard to put a price on that, and we think about when it's your own children. We always wanted them to have the best teachers, right? The best technology, the best opportunities to be successful. And my job is to make sure we do all in our power, everything in our power to ensure we provide that for all the children of Montgomery County. It's exciting for me to come in to a district when we had 3 new renovations that were basically just almost as I started coming to full completion and being brought to fruition. Even though Board Chair mentioned there were some things that were neglected, that we'll address those moving forward. But those spaces are really dynamic learning environments. When you go to Christiansburg Elementary School and the primary school, as well as Bellevue, and see how those, you know, it wasn't the whole building renovations, but the spaces that were, it revitalizes that learning environment. And children and staff thrive in places where they feel comfortable. You know, it goes back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If the setting and the structure in your physical space is good, you can move on to other things. If it's not, it's really hard to go on to the things that matter and really achieve your optimal potential. So kudos to the Board of Supervisors and the division for putting the monies there and dedicating that for those changes. It makes a world of difference for the children. Where we're going to start, and I will turn it over to Dr. Whitaker, I think, at this point, you know, where was the funding for this year? That's our beginning, and then we'll go where we end for this year. Dr. Whitaker?
Thank you. So what we wanted to do first is just remind you about the budget that we approved and how that process works. We think it's important to help folks remember because of the timing of the funds, we have to start in a certain place. So just as a reminder, originally in the 22-23 operating budget, we had approved that at $126 million. Then we had to increase, and the reason was because you have to approve the budget before you actually got the governor's amended budget. And so within that governor's amended budget, we had the 5% increase for all employees, the $1,000 retention bonus. And so when you see that line where it says General Assembly approved budget, you're going to see those funds there in instruction. And then we increased the gas for pupil transportation last year. And then the operations and maintenance, that was that 3.15 that was for school construction funds. The money we just talked about a minute ago that we're going to ask you to reallocate. Remember, we put it into our operating funds, and now what we'll be doing is moving it out into those school capital funds now that we know what we want to do with those, as we just detailed them for you a minute ago. And Katie, if I use a wrong word, don't hesitate, because I felt if I say the wrong word, don't hesitate to jump in. And so it's just important, too, to remember that we did a realignment of expenditures. So when you see that above the blue line, that was the categorical realignment. What that is where Katie and Mark and I worked with departments to go through budgets and realign funds with where we felt they should appropriately be. So an example, you can see they're coming from instruction. There were some celebrations we had in our budget previously. However, they continued to remain in the personnel component and were not moved out of personnel into the areas that they were. So salary and lapse savings had been used, which would come from personnel, but had been applied to other areas. So those areas were student uniforms for Corps cadets, our funds for athletics and officials, and then the school supplies that we began purchasing. Those are excellent celebrations, but we had to put them in the correct area of the budget to get that expense right. And so that was that categorical realignment that we did last year. So together with the governor's amendment, the General Assembly's amended budget, then you can see in the bottom the final budget that we approved, which is the $132 million. Next, what we want to do is talk to you a little bit about our goals in budget development for this year. As Dr. Bragan stated, we always want to focus on our strategic plan, and so we wanted to make sure that as we looked at it, we looked at focusing on the items that this board approved in the strategic plan. We wanted to look at increasing services and then always recruiting and retaining. So here's our goals for the budget development for this year. First is to continue to ensure that we have quality educational programs aligned with the goals of the strategic plan. We want to support student athletic safety needs. And so you're going to see here our goals, and we'll show you the actual numbers in just a little bit. So that is to hire 4 full-time athletic trainers, support the student mental health needs as identified in the strategic plan, 2 additional school counselors or mental health providers, increase access to preschool. That was also clear in the strategic plan that we wanted to increase. So we'd like to add an additional class at Auburn Elementary School. I've shared with you previously, but want to say it again. There are not a lot of childcare options in Auburn. And so the families there do not have the same opportunities for exposure to preschool that they may if they lived in a different community, simply because the offerings are not there. And so we feel that it is incumbent upon us to provide those and add an additional class. Ms. Rios is extremely ready to add one in. She probably would do it yesterday if she could, but we would be excited about that. The next is to increase pay for all employees utilizing funding provided for SOQ positions in addition to a local match. So what is coming forward right now in the amendment that we saw is a 5% raise for all employees and up to a 1% retention bonus. I do want to remind the board of the standards of quality positions. Every position we hire is not funded. And so the state has a funding formula through which they determine how many numbers of positions we may have that they will help support us with. It may be 12.74. I'm not sure what we do with the other 0.26 of that human, but I share that with you to say we don't know exactly who the people are or which part of them is funded. Because they don't say, you know, it's this many teachers at this school. They tell us based upon the staffing ratio set out in the standards of quality. If you need 1 teacher per this many students across the division, that's how many you get. And so not every position is funded, and it's not split. It's not like all teacher positions are funded and support staff are not. You may have 2 people sitting side by side. Ms. Graham and I could both be first grade teachers. I could be SOQ funded, and she could not. So we don't know, we don't have it set out which employees are in SOQ or which one are not. Funding changes every year, those names would change, but I wanted to provide that detail so that individuals understand we do not get funding for anywhere near all of our employees, and also we don't identify which employees are standards of quality staff members. In addition, we want to focus on salary corrections for individual staff as identified in the salary study. As a reminder, our employee group spoke to you in October, and you heard over and over again the request to review salary, and so our Human Resources Office did an excellent job. Mr. Nod and his team worked diligently to review those employee files. So this is not a salary scale change. These are human beings whose salary was evaluated based upon their personal resume. In addition, we would like to implement a new process for administrative assistants. We would like to change the way that we hire and place these individuals. This is the only employee group in the division that is being right now in a 2-to-1 experience ratio. We'd like to move that to a 1-to-1 for that group. It is extremely important. I would like to press upon you how hard it is to hire administrative assistants. It has gotten so difficult that we actually tell them where they might be before we bring them in, because we will have 7, 8, 9, 10 people turn us down for the same job because they look at the range and they say, oh, I think I might be in the middle, but then they're not. And so we call them in advance and say, here's where you might be, because the teams who were interviewing were spending so much time, and then we could not get candidates. And so Human Resources had to institute that process. We would like to increase custodial staffing to reflect the increased building sizes. So we'd like to add 4 more full-time custodians. And then you will again see, once we complete our facilities plan, moving forward, that needs to be a part of what we do. When we increase buildings or we increase services, we need to think about the other related costs. What does it cost to staff? What is the additional space? How many extra supplies do we need? How much more cleaning materials? There should be ratios and plans for all of these things. It should be very easy for us to figure out, and so that would be something we need to do moving forward that we did not. And we see difficulty in buildings with increased size because those custodians are having a difficult time. And then the last is to address the needs of our self-funded health insurance account. We'll provide you more details on that in just a minute as well. So those are the goals that governed the budget development for this year. I'm so sorry, thank you. Yes, one more. And the last is to increase funding for services, supplies, material, and equipment to address inflation. Inflation, unfortunately, public funds are not immune to inflation. So if we do not increase for inflation, we are actually putting in budget cuts, right? If everything costs more but they get the same amount of dollars, then they're having to reduce the things that they are able to get. So an overview for you of our budget development process. As a reminder, we moved from February to October hearing from your employee groups. It was very difficult to respond to their request in February, and so we wanted to get the information to you earlier so we could hear what those employee groups were asking for, and we could respond and bring that information to you as you see today. So those employee groups, we actually met with them first so that just to make them feel a little bit more comfortable, allow them to ask questions, and really just to set a foundation of your board does want to hear from you. Please share with them what you want them to hear. You know, I heard one person said to me, so you need to read what we're writing first. And I said, no. They said, really? I said, I will if you want me to. I said, but you're speaking to the board. You don't need my approval of what you're going to say. Say to them what you would like to say. If you want me to hear it, I'm happy to, but this is not you speaking to me. You're speaking to the board. And so the goal of that meeting was to just put some comfort into place. And then in October, they provided the suggestions for considerations to you. In November, Katie Miano and Mark Evans in the budget department put forward the budget request templates to schools and departments that allowed schools to tell us what they wanted and departments to tell us what they wanted and needed so that we could evaluate those requests. In December 16th, it always kills us, it's right before the Christmas break. That's why we like to note, right? It's like right there, right when the holiday is starting. We received our budget calculation tool. And I'm sorry, I should not have said that it was a holiday break. The VDOE, and that's based upon those amendments to the biennial budget. Then we've been working to review the individual school and budget requests with Dr. Bragan so that he could develop his statement of needs. The governor's amendment, as of now, remember this is all tentative, so he's taking that to the General Assembly. Nothing is official until it's voted on. But at this time, what we are seeing is a retention bonus of up to 1% and a 5% increase for those standards of quality positions. And Ms. Miano is going to talk to you a little bit about our self-insurance funds. Do you want me to click on it? You good? Okay.
As Dr. Whitaker mentioned, I'll review our employee health insurance fund. As you may recall, at the school board meeting held on June 6th last year, we gave an update including information on this fund. At that time, the fund balance was approximately $2.8 million, and since that time, our balance has continued to decrease by approximately an additional $854,000. As of December 31st, the fund balance in the self-insurance fund is just under $2 million at the $1,991,130. And just for reference, our consultants recommend we maintain a minimum balance of 2 months of claims, and that varies greatly from month to month, but the average is about $2.4 million. So the next slide. So I'm going to take a few minutes and explain all the color blocks and lines to you on this one. So the dark green blocks at the bottom of the chart represent the average employee premium contribution paid per employee per month. With the exception of a small increase from fiscal year 16-17 to fiscal year 17-18, these rates have remained unchanged. This change that I just mentioned, for example, included changing the HMO employee-only coverage from a zero-cost employee plan to a $25 employee contribution. That's just an example of one of the changes. So next, the light green blocks stacked on top of the dark green indicate that the employer or the division paid premium contributions per employee per month. These green blocks added together equal the total premium contribution per employee per month to the self-insurance fund, and those numbers are represented with the numbers on the left-hand side in gray. So the red line on the chart shows the average claims paid per employee per month for each year, and those also correspond with the gray numbers on the left-hand side. Then finally, the blue line that's on there overlays the fund balance over the same time period, and then these amounts correspond with the numbers on the right. So I just want to point out a couple things. It's important to note that fiscal year 22-23 numbers for claims and fund balance are not for a complete year, as the plan year started in October, and then the fund balance is as of December 31st. So the actual numbers may vary from those that were shown. The data for the fiscal year 23-24 in this chart is a projection based on doing nothing with the health insurance premium contributions. So the next chart, if you'll change, is the same except for the last column. This chart estimates the claims we will pay out based on our consultant's actuarial valuation. And while the chart shows a slight decrease in the claims paid indicated by the red line, our current premium contributions are short approximately $2.8 million based on this valuation. Of that $2.8 million, the recommendation is to pass 6%, or approximately $200,000 to the employee. That means on the same $25 that I just mentioned a few minutes ago, for the HMO employee-only plan, the employee contribution would increase by $1.50 per month for a total of $26.50 per month. The high deductible health plan would remain a zero cost for the employee-only coverage, and the HSA contribution would remain the same. The remaining portion of approximately $2.6 million is recommended to be paid as the employer contribution and is added to the budget that's going forward. Now, Dr. Bragan and Dr. Whitaker will review the statement of needs, the superintendent's statement of needs.
Say that one for me, huh? So I'll go over this briefly, and Dr. Whitaker could fill in any blanks. So if you look at this at the end, all the things that we spoke about, starting from last year's where we began, and the things that we were going to add this year, including, the increase in the health benefits contribution, the raises for the staff, SOQs and otherwise, to bring the support personnel up to where we think it would be and would be appropriate to align with other staff members. Adjusting for inflation, as we mentioned, we also included some of the salary savings and lapse, which I used to refer to as shrinkage. It's called something different here. I'm learning all those terms and things like that. So if you look at the blue line all the way on the right on the top, that's where we were last year. All in, after the adjustments were made, it was about $132 million. Where we are this year in the proposal, all in, it comes out to about $138 million. I'm using rough numbers. I'm not trying to make them sound like they're not a lot. I'm just trying to, for clarity. And with what we anticipate in the revenue that we received last year from the Board of Supervisors and the increase in state aid this year, as well as any of the federal monies, I believe we left all those flat because we can't really determine what that will be until those numbers come out. The ask for the Board of Supervisors would be in the amount of $4.8 million. Dr. Whitaker, anything I missed on that?
No, I think you got it all. The only thing I would note in addition is just you see those construction funds at the top. Just a reminder, those are the ones that were given in last year's budget, and they will just be moved out to go to the projects that we discussed earlier. So that, they will still be our money, but they're going to go into specific projects.
It's also one-time money.
Right.
It was one-time.
It's that one-time money, so it's not recurring. We don't have, that'd have been great, though. We don't have that money. And so this does reflect all of those items that he shared with you. One thing to note, just as a reminder to you, is we have to estimate our federal based upon what we got last year. We don't really get those numbers until like September. So that budget planning calendar is completely off of ours. So we budget based upon what we think, and sometimes we get cut and sometimes we get more, and then they reallocate based upon what the federal government gives us at that time. As a reminder, here was our budget calendar for you, and so we would bring forward to you at the next meeting on the 7th this discussion for you to discuss at that time. If there's any additional information you would like us to bring, we can certainly prepare that and have that for you. This is one meeting less, but just as a reminder, we wanted to give Dr. Bragan a little bit of time to get in, review the budget, and, we didn't get the numbers till the 16th of December. So we're trying to move very quickly, but we do note that is one last meeting. But if there is any information that you would need, we're happy to gather it and get that for you so that it would be available at the 7th, the meeting on the 7th for your review.
Annie, how much did we ask the Board of Supervisors for last year?
That is a great question. Katie, do you have that? It was 4?
Or something.
Yeah, I can get that number for you.
And how much did they give us?
It was. Give me 1 second. Can we do this real quick and let Katie pull those numbers up? And then we'll have her give you the exact, so we're not picking out of the air.
It doesn't have to be answered this moment, but I was just curious as to, I can't remember.
Like $1.5 million.
But, they didn't, it wasn't, so.
Wasn't even half.
It wasn't even close, so.
I do want to, and I can't speak to their decision-making, but I do want to remind you there was a question at that time regarding the staff, the second component, that 1.7 million. And so there were some pretty significant questions from the Board of Supervisors at that time regarding those funds. Again, I can't speak to their decision-making, but we've been able to answer those questions for them at this time. And those were big questions that they had at that time, was, where was that additional money that we received, and did we back pay on those increases?
True.
So, thank you. A lot of good information. Kind of not used to some of this. So, nutrition. I know that budget is coming.
Yes, we'll bring that for you at the next meeting. We did do salary evaluations for those groups as well, but because they're not in our budget, they would fall within their budgets. The harder component with that is not necessarily, anything we do, we also want to talk to TNG to see what they're doing as well. But we will be bringing that information to you at the next meeting.
Okay, so I think we need to make sure we're having a conversation with them about how employees are being treated and not pitted against each other.
I would celebrate the collaborations that we've had. Dr. Bragan has had an opportunity to meet with Chuck from TNG and with Ginny. We've instituted regular meetings that I have with the two of them, and then they themselves have established regular meetings. We sat down together between the two groups and did things that were really supposed to happen at the beginning of this relationship with them that I found out did not occur. And so just simple processes, procedures. Ginny, we by law have to have our own school nutrition person, and so that person needs to be included in the conversations, and she had really been removed, and so we've worked deliberately to bring those two together, and I think they are collaborating very well. When you push people apart, they're apart. And when you bring them together, they are together. And so I think we are going to see improvements there as well, just because of the systems we are setting in place and the expectations we have that we work in collaboration with them. And that, we're a team. The goal is feeding kids. It's nothing other than let's get kids fed and let's not go into the hole, as you saw we, previously weren't able to do.
Yeah, I just want to say I really appreciate the amount of attention you've brought to all of this and how thorough you've been in looking at everything in such a short period of time when you think about it. I mean, it was only just a few months ago you were doing 3 jobs. So I really do appreciate that, and I really am impressed with the collaborative nature of your work with the groups, and glad to see that the staff is being involved in decision-making that they weren't involved in before, so. And being utilized, and I'm sure they appreciate that too, being part of the process, so kudos.
Well, I do really appreciate that. I'll say, it's a lot of responsibility. I don't know the answers. So the great thing is we have great people, and they know what they're doing. And so as a leader, you don't have to know it all. What you have to know is that you can trust the people that you work with. And I feel really fortunate. It's exciting to be on the operations team, and I like to learn and do new things, but really it is the strength of the people that were already here. I'm just the one that's being the mouthpiece for it.
So just can't say again, when you bring people together and allow them to do their jobs, we get great information and we can do wonderful things. So thank you all of you.
So when I look at the summary here of the needs, if you take away that health insurance increase, our ask to the Board of Supervisors would only be, 2.2 or 2.3 million, which is, that's a significant chunk, and I think people are that's gonna come up in conversation, and so I was wondering if we could maybe talk about that a little bit more, and I know we talked about this a little bit the other day, but nonetheless, I think it's something that the entire board needs to hear, and the public too. So what, on that 2.6 million, that is is that, remind me again, is that recurring?
You're saying the health insurance increase? Yes, it would be recurring. We are self-funded. We pay, Dr. Bragan can share with you, I think, his comparison of funding a self-insurance fund. We have not been adequately funding it. That number is going to continue to decrease. We have to keep it up. You have to have that amount in there. And so at some point, we have to address that, or we're going to not have the funds that we need available to pay the claims that we have.
And as far as your question about reoccurring, it may go down next year, but it will take us several years to catch up.
What may go down?
The amount we're having to contribute to get it to a manageable state.
I think I know the answer. I think the question you're asking is what we listed there, that 2.6 million that's there increases, shows a smaller increase for our employees' contribution, but that would be our contribution moving forward, and that's contingent upon the claims, right? So we worked with the broker. This was the first meeting I had with our broker from Gallagher, I believe is the firm, and their recommendation is to budget that amount per month per employee. That's how they determine it. So in answer to Mr. Chewbacca's question, would that be ongoing? That would be the amount that they feel is adequate in two ways. One is to make sure we can satisfy our monthly claims. As Katie said, they're between 2 and 2.5 million a month, depending on something in that ballpark that we're underfunding right now, which is depleting basically that money we have in the bank for that fund. So if we fund it adequately moving forward, the goal would be to meet those claims and build up on that reserve and get that back to a healthy reserve, in the $4 million range, I believe.
So when we went to self-insured, that's joint with the county, and because our employee numbers are so much higher, it helps to give a greater discount to their employees too. But when we did this, there was a plan as to how we maintain that, and to make sure we maintain that. What happened?
I can't speak to I'm not sure. I can tell you what I remember hearing is there's no increases to the insurance. Well, we're self-funded, so we increase it ourselves, right? It didn't mean there weren't increases that should have been there, or that our fund wasn't going down more. I don't remember seeing fund balances brought forward. Ms. Miano might be able to share, but I just think it was something that was not addressed. I think the information that was shared is there were no increases to health insurance at this time. But we increase it, right? We would increase our contribution ourselves. It didn't mean that the claims weren't higher or the cost wasn't greater. It was just we didn't pass it on or put more money in the budget. Is there a better way to say that?
No, the contributions didn't change, that we were contributing to the self-insurance fund. What was happening is the claims
were going higher.
Were going higher.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
so it was,
The doctor's so much more.
it was depleting our fund balance.
And the cost of insurance was more expensive.
Right, and we've not asked
Yes.
for any kind of contributions for all these years.
Right.
And years ago,
No
I said, this
increases.
is going to catch up with us.
Exactly.
And it has.
Right. Well, it's similar also to what I talked about, right, with needing to increase the cost on materials and supplies. We were not immune to what was happening in the rest of the world with healthcare. It was nice as an employee, but at the same time, we as an organization need to make sure that fund balance is where it was. And so it was dropping because we weren't addressing and looking and putting the extra money in over time. And so that's why you're seeing such a, such a big need at this point.
And having not been here, I can't speak to what happened in the past, but I can speak to the chart that was provided, and it's pretty telling. If you look at 2016, 2017, we budgeted more than the cost was. That's what you should do. You should budget a little more than what the actual cost for claims would be so that you build up that reserve for that rainy day when, God forbid, someone gets a catastrophic illness, or an injury or something like that, that we have is within that range. That's not quite at the stop loss, but it costs us more money than a traditional employee would. And the next year, we're right on point. The next year, we're close. The next year, we're about breaking even. But if you look at 2020, 21, the claims are significantly higher than what we budgeted. And that trend has continued. We budgeted the same amount, and that's why, to make it close to where the claims would be that increase for this year. I mean, I would tell that, I would talk to anyone and share that information. I don't know how you fix that without raising that money. Where we get it from, we could argue who pays what share, but without fixing that in the very short future, someone's going to go to get work done at the physicians, and we're not going to be able to pay it. And we can't be in that place.
So maybe this is just too basic of a question, but are we recommending an increase in costs for the employee?
Katie just told us about 6%.
We did.
Right, it's about 6% on what their current cost is. So
what does that equate to about?
the $25 that I mentioned, that is for an employee-only HMO plan. It's the employee currently contributes $25. 6% of that is $1.50. So their current new monthly cost would be $26.50.
Okay.
But what is that? I mean,
That's not a lot. That seems.
What does,
That seems.
in the 2.6, we're basically going to take 2.6 million out of our budget to contribute to this. So I think the question is, what dollar figure per year do we get with a 6.5%?
That was $160,000 or somewhere thereabouts, right? Do you remember that number?
How much more are the employees?
It was a little under 200,000,
It
right?
was
for the
2.8
employee.
initially.
So it's
now
less than,
Yeah,
okay,
so
so it's less than
roughly
10%, okay.
Mark, you're welcome to come up. I see him eager. He's got information he wants to share.
He has been crunching numbers.
If you haven't seen Mark much before, Mark is our budget analyst. This is Mark Evans. Welcome to the table.
They're both right. It just depends on how you do it a little bit, but it's about under 200,000, above 160, depending on where you go.
Okay.
It's about there.
I knew it used to be, and it may not be that way anymore, and it may be because we're self-insured, it may be different, but it used to be if someone carried their family plan, the employer had to pay half of that. Is that the way it works with the way this is, or no? For an example, if you worked for the Wall, and you might have got your insurance for free, and if your wife, say your policy was $400, the Wall would have to pay $200 of that. That's just what the state required. Is that how it works with a self-insured, or no?
No.
Okay, so it's not.
We do have a provision where we ask our employees if they're covering spouse or family, if they are eligible at their employer, there's a $25 fee monthly. And- Yeah. But we don't verify it. It's basically trust them. We just ask.
However,
So-
they do pay.
Yeah.
So they do pay an amount, like I have my children on mine. I do pay out of pocket to add my children to my plan, but it is not, I don't know that the percentage of the cost, we could find that information for you, but I just wanted to let you know. So that the family members don't get added on at the same cost as the just employee only. There's an employee only, so that's, like I'm on the HSA, that's $0. When I add my children in, then I have to then pay out of my paycheck to cover my children. So they do pay some amount on that if it's anybody other than themselves.
Right, I understand, but if, it used to be where my husband worked, if you had a family plan, if you had to pay $600 of that, the employer also had to match that if you carried benefits. So that's why I asked. I didn't know about being self-insured, if that made a difference. Okay.
We
Okay.
try to make sure that each employee is given the same dollar amount. if you look at it that way, per plan.
So we contribute the same amount regardless of how many people they have on. So say he has no children on his plan, the same dollar amount is funded for his insurance as for mine with 2 kids on it because I pay that extra piece for my children. Is that what you're, right?
Yeah. I look at it as if we were not self-insurance, we would have to pay Anthem. Let's make it easy, $1,000.
Exactly.
$25, let's say it comes from the employee, $975 would come from MCPS.
Right.
If you were on the employee only. We take that $975 and apply it to all of our plans, all of our levels. So all the employees are getting the same benefit from MCPS for the cost of insurance.
So, one question about the county component of this, because you said that this is a joint thing we do with the county. So let's say, at the end of the budget process, we say, all right, we're gonna have to do a 10, everybody's insurance premium goes up 10%. Does that then apply to the county side too, or do they do their own numbers and contribute however they want?
They do their own numbers. However, we do try to keep our high deductible plans similar.
Okay.
It's the only plan that we really have that is similar, and so we've tried to keep that reflective on both sides.
What about this, the blue line,
They're in their own.
They have
So,
their own reserve
yeah,
fund?
We pool together for the benefit, but then we do each
Okay.
have our
Okay.
own separate piece of that.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Board, any other question or discussion? I do think that, this is going to be a relatively quick process, so we should probably have some ideas of contingencies in case, we don't get the full 4 sorry, what
Mr.
is it,
Chewbacca, she does have those numbers, if you'd like them real quickly about our ask last year and our receive.
Ms. Cass asked, so last year it looked like our ask was about 4.5 million, and we received 2.1.
It's like, whatever, over 2 million. Basic math. So what you're saying is we need to be prepared. Where are we going to cut to?
Well, I don't know what the number is going to be. I do think that we should have a fair discussion with the Board of Supervisors on some of this stuff. I certainly think the salary enhancements, I've said this as long as I've been on the board, anytime we have an opportunity to take free state money, we should do that. And I would hope that the Board of Supervisors would support us in that. So, I think that's important. And I think that this health insurance issue is something that we do need to solve. And I think that they, need to help us solve that. One way to look at it is that we've been giving a discount for the last few years, but the discount's up. So I do think we need to have those conversations, and I guess we'll wait and see what kind of extra money the county has. Okay, I'm sorry.
Last year they had some, but they didn't want to give it to us.
It's a new year. All right. Thank you, Dr. Whitaker. Thank you, Dr. Brain.
Thank you.
We are on to unfinished business. Are there any other items of unfinished business that anybody wants to bring up?
I just have a question. I never know how unfinished business works, but last meeting, we did talk about safety in our schools, and tonight I noticed that, since we talked about athletic trainers, and that was part of it, does that mean that
Yes.
that's not going to come back up?
No,
or
I'll take the responsibility for that one along with the leadership team. So the conclusion on that one was that we agreed to bring it back, but not necessarily at the next meeting. So it will come up on the agenda. And I think, remind me from agenda prep, there was.
I think everybody needed more time to
Yeah.
get the things together for it.
Yep.
Because even what Mr. Husband did without athletic trainers took a tremendous amount of time to make all those contacts and everything.
I understand, and my question's not even, I'm
Yeah.
I'm
So
talking about
we haven't
safety
forgotten about it. It's
general,
Yeah.
okay, because we need to.
Yeah.
I
We
think
need to
there'll be
put that
lots of-
on the agenda soon.
We
I've
will.
talked to so many bus drivers and teachers and disrespect and parents trying to get on buses and threats. And we need to really start talking about some of the issues we've got. And so
I think we have a lot of pieces, moving parts to that.
We had a survey that we put out too that we didn't have ready yet. So with
That's what it
that
was.
data,
That's what it
we'll
was.
bring
Thank
back,
you.
and I
Yeah.
think we
about
should
that.
have a preliminary conversation. Is it February 7th is the next meeting?
Okay.
When's our next meeting? February
Yeah.
7th?
Thank you for that reminder. I
Yeah,
knew there was
that's
something
it.
we were waiting on.
Yeah, okay.
I do think, sorry.
He was saying there was a survey.
She didn't hear what you asked.
I didn't hear what you asked.
Oh, I was just asking that since we had the athletic trainers on the agenda tonight, we were still going to move forward with a safety agenda item on one of our meetings, because I do think we've got big issues we need to.
Last week about safety in the schools.
Right. We need to.
And the conclusion is that we were waiting until we got the data back from the surveys. Okay, if there's no any other items of unfinished business, we'll move on to new business. Oh, I'm sorry, was that unfinished business? Okay.
Unfinished, because we spoke about this at the retreat, and that was our whistleblower policy and making sure our employees understand exactly how that works, so that we may not end up in the same situation we've had to deal with for the last year, 2, 4, 5 years, 6.
Ms. Drake did provide some communications out to our staff. She could speak best to that, to ensure they were aware of the different processes through which they could file complaints and concerns. Can you share that information?
We don't necessarily
want to know
we don't need to talk
tonight,
about it right
Okay,
now,
but I
but
would like
for
for the
future topics.
board.
Got it.
Right.
yeah.
I apologize, I misunderstood.
Yeah, let's add that to agenda prep for one of the next meetings. Okay, and then that'll be a nice segue into new business, so any other items of new business, board? Any announcements or information?
Well, I'd like to announce that the Doggone race will be this Saturday. So please register if you have not. Love to have everyone there. And I also want to announce that I will be running for re-election. So seems to be some folks who didn't understand that, but kind of a no-brainer for me.
Okay.
Chair Chewbacca, I have an announcement if you don't mind.
Sure.
So since I am one of the liaisons with Ms. Bond for the Town Council, Christiansburg Town Council, I am going to be sending the school board out some information on the meeting that took place during our last board meeting that Dr. Bragan addressed in his announcements this evening. I think every school board member needs to go back and watch the video of the meeting pertaining to the issues that the town has with the SROs that they're addressing with the Board of Supervisors. And I would just like to share some of my thoughts on a personal note. So I have to say that after we had sat and talked for 3 hours about school safety and how we are going to try to improve it and try to make the lives better for our students, our employees, and our administration, and our staff, the bottom line is the real matter that the safety of the students, the employees of the county, their lives are important. And that's the bottom line. There needs to be SROs in all of the schools, regardless if they're in the county or if they're in the towns. Now, you guys know that ever since I've been on this board, I've been an advocate for the SROs and for school safety. It's a passion of mine. So I want to say that I've always been an advocate for keeping our students safe inside and outside of the schools. We have to remember that we have to have not only our law enforcement help to play a key role in our school safety, but we need to keep our lines of communication open with our fellow board, not only with it being the Town Council of Christiansburg, the Town Council of Blacksburg, our Board of Supervisors. This is an issue where we all need to be working together instead of trying to say someone's going to do something and we're not. This is, again, let me reiterate, this is my personal opinion and not the opinion of the board. I also want to say I am shocked and disappointed with the town council members that voted yes to remove the school resource officers from the town schools. Brad St. Clair, the assistant town administrator, presented a PowerPoint that gave a lot of good information that I will also be sharing with the board to look over for your personal information. And I am just wanting to state publicly that I am highly and passionately opposed to that. In light of the recent school shootings, I can't believe that this topic was even brought up. We all need to work together on this issue, the county, the towns, the schools, the law enforcement, and yes, the parents. Parents, we need you to help with this as well, to keep our schools safe. We need to work on strengthening our relationships with each other and continuing to do that. Personally, I can say that I'm sure that the board will agree with me on the fact that we have got to keep our SROs in every school. There is no discussion on this in my mind. This is something that has got to happen, period. Too many people have fought too hard to get where we are now to make this happen. I would like to thank several board members of the Board of Supervisors that I am echoing this evening on these comments, and that I am happy to hear they are serious and wanting to make school safety a priority as it should be. Again, this is not something that I feel our children should be put in a political position to get something that someone else wants. That's not okay with me. I can promise you that myself, as a single school board member, speaking only for myself, that I will continue to fight for our kids' safety, and I will make sure and do anything I can in my power to ensure that our kids are safe inside of our schools. I look forward to the discussion on this topic with my fellow board members as well as the Board of Supervisors. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. And I do believe, I mean, this is something that Dr. Bragan just brought to us, so I do believe that it will end up on a future agenda item, and we will have a chance to discuss that, so.
We have a joint meeting coming up,
When is that?
the 30th, right?
I mean, from my point of view,
The 30th was postponed.
Oh,
But
okay.
we have to
Sorry.
reschedule that meeting, but it could definitely be a topic of conversation, absolutely.
but I hope we get a chance to talk about it as a board first.
Yes.
At a future meeting. So. Okay, moving on to, if there aren't any more announcements or information, moving on to the upcoming school board meetings. You see that in the 7th is our regularly scheduled meeting. That's our next meeting. And the next item is closed session to discuss personnel matters and a student matter. Do I have a motion to enter into closed session as authorized by Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia to discuss one personnel matter?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Ms. Woods, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. We are now in closed session.
We stand in.